All right, we are back on the podcast where we are training men in spiritual fitness. I am Evan McGinty here with my friend Joe Barnard. Joe, I think we're on like our sixth week in a row where we have read a book and talked about masculinity. Are you tired of this? Are you tired of talking about being a man yet?
I've been eating raw meat, lifting up cars with one arm. This has been an amazing experience for me, Evan.
Oh gosh, life transforming. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that you're clearly learning the lessons that we've been trying to teach. Yeah,
That's right.
that's what you're jumping to.
I
I'm
got a
glad this is
beard though. I've got no facial hair
no
going on.
facial hair. Okay, we'll work on that. Yeah, this is another week of another book trying to figure out and get a clear picture of what does it mean to be a man. Just a question to kind of guide in and get us started on the book this week. Joe, what comes to your mind when you hear the term toxic masculinity? Toxic masculinity. What pops in your head when you hear that?
Oh, I don't know. I think of like some warrior that's like, stepping on one man's face while he's stealing another man's wife or something.
Yeah, just the worst version.
Yeah.
Just the worst version of what it means to be a man, right? Something
Yeah,
that
yeah.
on the outside maybe looks like what men would want to be, but yeah, just overusing and over dominant. Yeah, I agree. I think there's times also where it's like I hear this word toxic masculinity, and it is thrown around a lot these days. I think it also brings like some shame and guilt in a sense. Like there's a some shame that I think is meant to point at guys when they hear that term. That's one of the things I appreciated about the book that we're discussing this week. She kind of used that term toxic masculinity and as a wordplay. I always get the name of the title wrong. What's it called? Oh, the Toxic War on Masculinity by Nancy Pearcey. Is that it? You have the book in front of you, don't you?
Yeah, right here.
Nancy Pearcey, The Toxic War on Masculinity. And yeah, one of the things I appreciate about this book is that it's kind of being clear, hey, to be a man is okay. Like being a man is good. It's not toxic to be a man, but there are some toxic versions maybe that have existed. And ultimately, hey, men need help. Men need help with where they're at, and we need to be promoting the right kind of masculinity. So, just to get us started, what did you find helpful about this book and the subject matter and how she approached it?
Yeah, she's a faithful evangelical scholar, and so I think one thing she does is just dismiss kind of uh, false narratives about Christian families, even. And so there's a start at the beginning, taking families where you have a view of complementary roles between husband and wife,
Hmm.
where among Christians that are actually committed to their faith, these are like the happiest marriages that exist.
Yes.
They've got the best
Yeah.
sex lives that exist. I mean, there's
Mhm.
any number of things that you'll never hear from the media that if you look at the actual data is the case. And so I think on the one hand, she kind of deconstructs these kind of false assumptions we have about gender roles. And then on the other, she gives a really helpful history. I know some guys may not be interested in history, but if you're trying to understand how we got to this place of viewing men as this toxic creature,
Yeah.
he kind of layer by layer builds it up in a way that makes a lot of sense. And that's a little bit more complicated. And it's a different story than what you would hear from this sort of non-Christian academic.
Hmm.
So I think she kind of takes the ideas that have been bent out of shape and sort of straightens them so we can actually think rightly about this topic.
Yeah, that is one of the things I enjoyed about the book is the history portion. That I did find it interesting. Looking back on the different types of masculinity and the goods and bads within them, and kind of how has this shaped us and who we are now, and how has the what we've promoted as manliness and men, how has that shaped the forming of the future men and societies and things like that. So we're going to kind of play around with that a little bit today. That's what I want to do. Is you have created for me five different types or five different scripts of masculinity, and this kind of plays off of the work of Nancy Pearcey and those different types that she identifies in the book. But you gave them names, which I love, and so we're going to identify each of these, and I hope that guys can in this maybe diagnose where they're at. What sort of script am I following? for masculinity? How is this informing the way that I treat my family, treat my work, treat my community? What is my vision of life? All of that kind of comes into play within each of these. So we'll just kind of walk through them one by one, and hopefully guys can see either themselves in one of these, or they'll definitely see some guys they know in one of these. So the first one, the first kind of script or diagnosis of a man that you gave us was Charles Ingalls, the Charles Ingalls model of a man. First of all, who is that, and why did you choose that?
All right. Well, Scottish guys, forgive me. So you know this is going to be a little taste of Americana culture, but actually my first experience of TV, Evan, like as far back as I can go is like this is like 1980s. Like this is outside Dallas, Texas, in a place called Gainesville, and I'm sitting and I'm listening. I can see it, the music, and hear the music of Little House on the Prairie, which was
Yes.
like this classic show, and based on books that are kind of from that period where families were making a home on the frontier.
Hmm.
And what's epitomized there is this kind of pre-industrial family
Yeah.
where it's not this sharp distinction. So the man goes out to work, away from the home. The mom is stuck inside. It's what Scottish guys here would think of as having a croft, having a small farm, and everybody joins in the labor. And so dads are present at home. Kids are out building fences and tilling fields and harvesting crops. And so it's this picture that you had that actually stretched for a long period. I mean, the difference between a family in ancient Israel, where
Mm.
everybody had a little plot of land, and the family, in America, where for a while almost every family had a little plot of land, that actually there was a way of life that you could have that men found their identity working hard, but working hard beside their families and their wives and their kids.
Mm.
And so that's this kind of Charles Ingalls model. And that Nancy Pearcey doesn't label it that way, but describes as I think her ideal for the family.
Yeah. And yeah, this is not surprising that, of course, you would bring in an old school like model of an old TV show as the form of masculinity. Although I would say I'm proud. At least this was from the 1900s. Like you brought in an example of a TV show
This
from
is
the
modern, man. This is very,
Yes,
very
this
modern.
is modern in the Bernard house, so that's good. Uh, but it's interesting as I think about that guy, that Pa is that's what they called him, right? In the show, they called him Pa.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. That character in that TV show, he does kind of check a lot of the boxes of look back at some of the books we've read previously. Extreme ownership, all right, taking responsibility, full responsibility for the mission and everything. Okay, he's fully responsible for the things that are going on in his home and in his prairie, right? You think about Stephen Mansfield's do manly things. I mean, yeah, Paul was a guy that took initiative. He had a bias towards action. He had to survive. This was
Yeah.
ultimately needed for survive. You think about even leaving boyhood behind. That book we read. Are you inviting a next generation into manhood?
Yeah.
Well, he had to again to survive. You got to raise a son who can also work with you, alongside you, and be there ready for that next generation. Even that the first book we read, which is all about the Genesis 2 mandate to go
Yeah.
and work and tend your field and all that. Well, yeah, he was living that out. So, all right, I'll give you credit. This guy checks a lot of the boxes here. That's really good, and it was within the 1900s. So that's for you. That's we're
It's
doing well.
contemporary. It's
It's
contemporary.
contemporary. It's contemporary. I think that if I were to say,
Forward thinking, we might even say.
yeah. If there were a problem here with this model, I guess that if I were to say is it does seem idealized, it does
Yeah.
seem old-fashioned, it does seem maybe even out of touch with reality. I think a lot of guys would say, and I think there would be some people would say, is that kind of man even in demand anymore? Is there even a demand for that out of touch with reality, old-fashioned, idealized form? So I think that's probably what some guys will hear as we describe that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But you probably have that guy in your mind, or you see some of yourself in him, hopefully. But let's look at the second one, second script of masculinity, Elon Musk. So what is it about Elon Musk that you see as a script for masculinity?
So this is a guy who idolizes his work. That's his identity. That's his value as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And that work has taken him away from home and away from his family.
Mm-hmm.
And so rather than having these close relationships that you'd see like with Charles Ingalls, these are kids that hate their dad, that have deep father wounds. And there's a reason that this model has become so predominant. Part of what happens, and I'm not going to bore guys with all the history, but there's a movement, there's industrialization that
Yeah.
happens, in particularly in the 19th century. And so the whole life of civilization, sort of shifts from these kind of small farms, more and more you have people having to find jobs at places like factories, which become things like corporations. And that takes guys away from their home. And so that's where you begin to have this typical rhythm where maybe it's 8 o'clock, whenever, but the dad's out the house,
Mm,
doesn't get back home. By the time he's back from his commute, it's already almost dinner time. So the whole life of the wife and kids is lived detached from their dad, which means his influence
mhm,
shrinks enormously.
mm,
And it becomes to be a real challenge to try to, in the little bit of time that remains each week, to have any kind of meaningful quality time, but even have quantity time with family members. And so that's that kind of Elon Musk model that you don't have to have billions of dollars to be able to see yourself actually fitting to that pattern.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys can see themselves in this. I've seen myself in this at times, and there's some guys that maybe um, use work as like a ego boost, and that's like, hey, my work, my career serves my pride and my ego, and so therefore, yeah, it's kind of like the surface of the problem, I guess you could say, is that they're a workaholic, or that they're misappropriating their time and their energy at work as opposed to at home. I do think that deeper problem is just a lot of times guys are using the workplace as an escape from the difficulties within the home, the difficulties of life, of being a man, raising a family, being a husband, all those kind of things. That work is either feeding, it's something that feeds your ego, or it's something that helps you escape the difficulties and the action that you must take at home. And it's using something, it's hard because it's using something that's ultimately good, work. Work is good and admirable. We're called to work. And so there is something admirable in being successful and being a guy that goes to work. But at some point it becomes an abuse of that, and using that as a crutch, or using it to as kind of an excuse for your lack of initiative at home. Like, oh man, I'd love to do better at leading my family spiritually, but I got so much work to do. Or I'd love to be at church more, but I got so much work, the demands of work, and we got to keep up with the bills and all of these things. And so yeah, you just become this guy who's never really present.
I think it's important for guys to realize the degree to which this is the script they were downloading from almost the cradle. So,
Yeah.
if you're kind of middle class, like you, United States or United Kingdom, what do? You go to school. Why do you get to school? So you can go to college. Why do you go to college or university? So you can get a degree. Why do you get a degree? So you can get a job. Why do you get a job? So you can have a career. Why do you have a career? Nobody knows why you need a career, but it's just this ladder that you're on from your earliest years, and
Yeah.
the assumption is that the most meaningful thing you will ever do is have a career,
Yeah.
and that's
Mm,
something that many need to think about. What's the difference between a calling, and a career, because they're
mhm.
not necessarily the same.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. The third one, and it looks like you're trying to pick a fight with this one, so I'm eager. The Bear Grylls model of masculinity. The Bear Grylls model. What is that, and what are the goods and bads?
Yeah, so this is the sense that manhood, it can't really exist in a domesticated environment. Men need adventure. Real manliness is a kind of omnicompetence. I can do everything, Go Grills, put him in any situation, battlefield, survival mode, and he'll be able to fix your problems. And it's important for guys to realize that, again, there's kind of a historical reason that this ideal developed. If you move from that industrialization, you also had an urbanization. You had people moving to places like the suburbs and so removed from anything that felt adventurous or wild that
Mm,
that could be a very kind of stunting environment. And part of what I think Nancy Pearcey does that's interesting is she goes back to some of the famous books of American culture. And this is a while ago, but where all of a sudden you're seeing this kind of reaction. And so, for example, guys probably haven't read the books by James Fenimore Cooper, but they've probably seen Last of the Mohicans, the movie. So you
yeah,
have those type movies. You've got Mark Twain.
yeah.
Like you've got characters like Tom Sawyer, who's looking for a fight. He's wanting to leave the civilization of his aunties, to be able to go live out in the wild. That this is already in the 1800s, but guys are feeling this sense that I'm in a straitjacket and I need to recover something.
Yeah.
And I think you even see it in some ways if you look at some of the missionaries, some of the ones that we
Mm,
idolize in the church who were so quick to leave their families, stick their kids in boarding schools to
mm,
go have some kind of pioneer adventure in the name of religion. And so this is a complicated one because I think there is something suffocating about our modern world. There is something, Fight Club's not wrong. If
Yeah.
you fill in spreadsheets all day, you might feel like you need to go to the basement, get punched in the teeth in order to be alive. Like there's something that's not helpful about modern work. At the same time, this too can become an idol. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're using this desire for quote unquote wildness when
Mhm.
you're really just hiding from your family, hiding from obligations,
Mhm.
um, and seeking a self fulfillment that's very selfish.
Mhm.
And that's not godly at all.
Mhm. Yeah, man, I hesitate to make in any way anything labeled with Bear Grylls out to be a bad thing. You know, I'm a fan. I like me some Bear Grylls. But you're right about the adventurous life style and hey, aiming for that. I want to say, man, give the guy a break. Like you said, it's hard. Like, and he likes being in nature and he likes adventure and he needs to get outside of the cubicle. And you know, we need these things and these are good. But yeah, when we start to dig a little deeper at that form of masculinity, that kind of that script for masculinity, there are some problems there. There is kind of that surface level problem that maybe there's just distraction. We're distracted from the what's in our inside our four walls and looking for the adventure out there, looking for yeah, calling out there as opposed to what's here. But I think the deeper problem that I've seen in guys is just that they're successful but unfulfilled. These are the kind of guys that maybe they've experienced all the things you checked off previously. They did the school, they did they got the wife, they got the kids, they got the career, they got the house, but they still feel unfulfilled. And they're just like, wait, this is it? This is life? And so that leads you towards this, well, maybe masculinity, maybe being a man, maybe there is more and it's out there. And maybe there's an adventurous kind of, you know, lifestyle out there, the next big thing. And a lot of times there's some sort of like complacency that's being masked by an adventurous lifestyle. Like I'm
Yeah.
just stuck where this is where I'm at and I'm stuck here and I'll never move forward. And so we mask that complacency with adventure because adventure looks like you're achieving something. It looks like you're doing something awesome and big
Yeah.
and but it's just a facade, right? There's it's a facade on a fake kind of achievement. And there's really nothing that it's a misdirected kind of achievement. And so yeah, I think this is one that guys need to be careful of and guys need to be on the watch for, and that it is kind of built into a lot of the labels for masculinity that you'll see out there, but it doesn't ultimately. You know, I think there are some goods in it. I do, like you said, I
Yeah, I don't
do
think
think there's
it's
goods in
certainly
it.
not like, the next one, which is really deplorable and there's not much to
Yeah.
redeem from it at all. But this one, there's nothing wrong, but it's almost at the level of these are your hobbies. It's not the
Yes.
substance of your
Yes.
life.
Yeah. No, there's good there. Okay, so the next one you already said it's deplorable, but so we'll go there. The Hugh Hefner model of masculinity. Hopefully
Yeah.
that's clear, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, he couldn't have picked a better name for his magazine, right? Playboy. The
Mm.
boy that never grows up, the boy that never takes responsibility. His whole
Yeah.
life wants to be play. I mean, this is talk about, the failure to become a man, and that's what he epitomizes.
Mm.
And this is it's partly you almost see kind of a satanic logic in sort of what happens. And so as guys, again, initially with industrialization, they're not at home, so they're away as they begin to feel detached from those family obligations, what you see is you see, and I think Nancy Pearcey does a great job charting this, but guys, all of a sudden in the 1800s, they're drinking more than ever before.
Huh.
You've got prostitution's a big problem. There's this whole ideal of a playboy, a boy that doesn't grow up, that finds his fun among other boys that are embodies of men, and just lives a kind of self-centered hedonistic existence. Um, and this is obvious. I mean, Andrew Tate or whoever you want to choose from today's world, that
Yeah.
you always find this type, and
Yeah.
it's ugly. It results in all kinds of broken women, broken children. So there's nothing heroic. This guy may not have the Bear Grylls kind of courage. So it's like a partial toxic masculinity. It's not the kind that crushes, the competition.
Yeah.
It's the kind that just willingly hurts other people in order to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah. I'll be honest, this is the guy that grieves me. Like this guy, man, I hurt for him. Like, 'cause it's just He thinks that the best pleasures in life are here and now and in the moment and the doing of the playboy lifestyle. And yeah, he appears to be the life of the party and always fun. And he's what was that commercial series? The most interesting man in the world. You know, he's like you got that kind of feel, but there's just the yeah, sense of immaturity and yeah, a sense of just short-sightedness of life. Like you just don't see the full picture, man. You're not seeing the full picture, and it grieves me when you see these guys because they just don't see it. They don't get it, and you wish that they could see the bigger picture here. But yeah, it's a script within our world. It's a model of masculinity that exists that can creep its way in
Yeah.
to some of us.
Yeah, these aren't like you can incrementally become more like this. So I think guys need to be careful because it's not like you'll look entirely like this type,
Right.
but there'll be all of a sudden you'll see 20% of your life moving that direction. And that's where you got
Yes.
to be careful.
Be careful. All right, the last one, the Homer Simpson model. Why did you label it that?
This is the guy who's all appetite. He's got no intellect,
Uh-huh.
doesn't get anything done. It's the worst of the sort of caveman
Yeah.
stereotypes. And this is a different result. So again, you think of all of a sudden guys we talked about working in kind of suffocating environments. So now this guy, instead of going and finding all his pleasure, with sexual conquests, he finds it just sitting in front of the TV, watching sports, drinking beer or eating, chips.
Yeah.
And it's a real kind of emasculated form of being a man. Like there's nothing admirable. There's no strength, nothing worthy of respect. And so in all of the sitcoms with this, and it's, most of the sitcoms, especially, you get into 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
um, uh, the wife doesn't respect him, kids don't even respect him. I mean, he really is just one big joke. And rather, I mean, everything that would force him to do something about the problem, like that ownership, instead, he just sinks down and accepts it and has no ambition at all. And
Yeah.
it's just a really, honestly, a disgusting portrayal of the dignity that we should have as men, the gift of
Yeah.
masculinity.
Yeah. Deplorable in a sense. Yeah. It's just no ambition and no purpose in life. See, it doesn't see a purpose or meaning to life and therefore lives as if there is no purpose or meaning and no reason to have ambition whatsoever. And who cares if, yeah, if wife kids don't respect me, that's fine. If I'm the joke, if I'm the butt of all
Yeah.
the jokes in the family, oh dad, if it's that, well, that's who this guy is, and he's settled in that even, and almost owns up to it and lives it out. And it's sad, and that's a sad one. Um,
Makes me think. I remember a funeral up in the Highlands. I didn't take this one, okay, so I wouldn't do this. But somebody died from the village. I was in a small village. Went to his funeral, and the only thing that it was a secular funeral that they could think to put on the coffin was a tin of Tennent's. Now that's a can of think Budweiser in Scotland. So the whole man's existence, with a smile on his face, the son put a can of beer on top of the coffin and sort of saluted his dad.
oh
You think,
wow,
what a waste. What a
yeah,
waste of that's the greatest symbol of his life that they could think of. And I think if we're honest, there's a lot of men that would be the perfect sort of crown to put on their life.
it's true, it's true. That is sad but true. Okay, so we've kind of ended on a total downer here. Can we can we help guys? What's the advice to men? Okay, so you've given five different scripts of masculinity. Diagnose, hopefully guys can kind of diagnose where they're at, see themselves and what's informed them, the way they think about their family, the way they think about their work, the way they think about their community, and even just their vision for life. Okay, they've seen that in some of these characters. What do we do from here? What advice would you give guys?
Well, let's start by acknowledging Charles Ingalls is the perfect man. So he sums up all of this. So he's got like from Elon Musk, he's got the entrepreneurial, like he can deal with the situation on the ground. He's not trying to make money, but if you need to improvise, he can do it. Bear
Yes.
Grylls, I mean, this guy, again, he's got the competence needed
Yeah.
to take care of his family.
Yeah.
Now, the Hugh Hefner, it's all directed toward his wife. He loves his wife. He
Yeah.
finds his satisfaction in the one woman worthy of his
Yeah.
sexual passion.
Yeah.
And then Homer Simpson, he does know how to enjoy good things. He just
Yeah.
doesn't let them own him, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, so we've got the model. The question is how. Unlike Evan, I know you would love to be among the Amish and
Oh,
move out,
totally. I'm
your
all in.
family.
I'm all in.
That's not the option. So I think the real question is, how can we move guys toward something of that Charles Ingalls model realistically? If you are, if your skill set is that of an accountant or of, a landscaper or something, what do you
Yeah,
do in a modern environment? And so I
yeah,
think,
yeah.
um, yeah, I think
Surely
we
we're
can
not
offer some
telling
advice.
guys to like just sell their house and go buy a little house on the prairie. Is that what you're going to tell guys? Guys, just sell your house,
Yeah.
go
No,
buy a little house on the prairie. Joe, these guys' families will die. Like they will die.
mine would die. Mine would die, Evan.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So give me something more than that.
Okay, so here's some advice I think that's realistic within reach. Number one, find ways to take your kids with you.
Yes.
If guys just open their eyes, they will find lots of times where maybe they're going to the hardware store on a Saturday to go pick something up for a small project,
Mhm.
and normally they do it by themselves.
Yeah.
Take your kids, put them in the car with you,
Yes.
let them share in your life. So I know, Evan, you seem to be good at that. You got any advice on how guys can do that?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. There's the word with. Circle that word in your mind. With. You are doing things in your life as a man. You have responsibilities even as a man. Things you have to take care with. Do it with someone. Do it with your kids. Do it with your family. You want to go on an adventure? Go on an adventure with your family. Your next big adventure needs to be with your family. Take them camping. So yeah, even simple things like we set up a church every week we meet in the gym and borrowed space. I'm going to take one of my kids with me to help set up. They're not the best at it, but they're getting better.
Yeah.
You can do, there's little things, responsibilities you have at church, in the home, even just thinking about the ways in which you designed your life in your home and the things you have to do. All of this can be done with your kids, with your family. Yes. So I think that that's the big one. Circle that word with. Think about what would this look like to do with one of my children, which means to take that further, you're going to need more time. Like, gosh, kids are really bad at some stuff. They take more time. They take more time to guide when you start doing things with them. And they're gonna have questions along the way. You're gonna need more energy. You're going to need more mental flexibility you need more emotional energy to give them. So if you're going to commit to doing things with them, you're going to have to design a lifestyle in which you're available, not just physically, because you can't outsource your presence. You cannot outsource your presence. So you got to physically be present, but you're going to have to mentally be present, emotionally be present, spiritually be present. All these things you've got to be ready to be in, which means, yeah, you may have to detach yourself physically, emotionally, mentally from some of the other things like work. It may have to get a little less of your attention so that you can dedicate some of that time to kids, which is I understand hard. It's not immediately practical for some guys, but it's an aim for sure.
Yeah. I think with that, I would encourage guys not to use Charles Ingalls as a stereotype, but as a metaphor. And here's what I
Mm,
mean by that. Like he's building a homestead,
yeah,
and for him, it's like a house and it's a farm. For us, it's not going to be those elements, but you are building a home. That's what
yeah,
you're called to do, and so you're going to have to figure out, not in the wilderness, but in a modern urban environment for many of us,
yeah.
how to build a home. And it's going to take wisdom and it's going to take courage and it's going to take hard decisions. And there might be choosing a job that doesn't pay as much, so the commute's not as long,
Hmm.
but you're going to have to figure out how to have an actual home in a modern world that is not set up for you to do so. And so this is the adventure. I mean, if you're the Bear Grylls type, if you want a big adventure, go out into the 21st century and try to build a godly family. And it's going to take everything you have. And you're going to have
Yeah.
to rely on God day by day, but he'll give you grace and it'll be an exciting adventure if you're willing to grab hold of it.
I agree. Yeah, you want an adventure, you want a difficulty as a man. Yeah, go build a family. Go. Good luck with that. Go build a family. That is a difficult call of manhood. I think that as we try to guide guys to a next step here, I think there are some guys that need a jump start through this. There's some young men that may be listening to this that they just need to hear, go get a job. Like, like, you know what? That's your next step. Go get a job, develop a skill, and then go use it to serve God and your community. You need to do that. Like, you need a jump start. Go get a job, develop a skill, serve God and your community, build a family. That's your call. Um, there's other guys that maybe they're already in a career. Their jump start is go home. Like,
Yeah.
stop spending so much time at work. Stop avoiding the home and working extra hours because you're afraid of the difficulties at home. So you need to go take initiative at your house. You need a jump start in doing that. You need to go lead at your home in the same way you lead in business. You need to lead at your home. Focus your time and energy there. But I think that most guys probably just need some small nudges, in the right direction here. Things like I've heard of friends that do have jobs that require them to travel, but they plan ahead of time. When the year starts, they say, here's the number of days that is healthy for me to be absent from my home.
Yeah.
And I won't accept anything beyond that. I won't go beyond that, even if it means not getting that promotion or whatever that looks like. But deciding ahead of time, and maybe that's a small nudge that a guy needs, like decide ahead of time what is the appropriate number of days that you could be away from your family and still be totally invested and totally all in. Because if you don't decide ahead of time, work is always going to need you. And it's always also going to be lucrative. It's also always going to fill a part of your heart that wants to be filled and fill your ego and your pride. So it will creep in if you let it. So you got to decide ahead of time, what are the times that I am going to be okay? It's 4 days a year or 5 days or 10 days, whatever your threshold is. But identify it. Go ahead and you got to decide those things ahead of time. I don't know, any other advice that you would give to those guys that maybe just need a nudge or push in the right direction?
Well, they can go watch Little House on the Prairie. Go get a different vision of manliness.
There you go. There you go.
Watch an episode.
Watch the Little House on the Prairie. I love it. Look, I can't argue with it. I want to make fun of you for it, but I'm with it. I like it actually. So no, it's good. Well, I've enjoyed this. I think this is yeah, I really enjoy talking about masculinity, what it looks like, what are the healthy, unhealthy versions. Hopefully guys have seen within this and have been able to self-diagnose. Where are you in these scripts that exist? Like there is all of this creeps into us. The culture around us, it will shape us. It will form you, and it will begin to creep you in certain directions, and you will drift if you're not careful. So guys, diagnose where you're at. What are the problems you're facing? Where are the areas in life that you're getting stuck? And then let's get things back in the right direction. We at Cross Training, we want to be helpful in doing so. So check out our ministry, our website if you're looking for resources, xtrainingministries.com, and you can find different resources to help get you on a path of spiritual growth and get a life that's headed in the direction of godliness. And we will be back. I think we got one more of these that we're going to do, right? One more talk on masculinity and one more book. So I hope you guys are looking forward to it. We'll see you next time on the Cross Training Ministries podcast.